I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest to share with you today, Christoph Nauer, and we will get back to who he is a little bit in a second. But first, let me tell you why you're here. Success is a journey. It's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombies as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Christoph Nauer is an awesome warrior. He's a certified business and personal coach, and Brian Tracy, certified time management master. He consults, mentors, and trains small business owners and professionals to have better life, better business by balancing six: money, health, relationship, time management, self-improvement, and the higher power. Therefore, I want to welcome Christoph Nauer. Welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are things in your neck of the woods? I know it's a couple of hours earlier there. Where exactly are you located?
Thank you, David. Yes, I am in the San Francisco Bay Area in a town called Lafayette. It's about 25 miles east of San Francisco.
So how's the weather there? Is usually pretty nice this time of year. Here I'm dealing with a forecast of 100 and I think it was 108 or 9 yesterday. What's it look like in San Francisco?
Well, we are fortunate enough that we're close enough to the Pacific Ocean to get the cooling effect of that. So the further east you go, the higher the temperatures get. Mm-hmm. So right now it's actually almost chilly in the morning. But then it goes up to about 80, 85 degrees. If you go further east, then you get into the triple digits as well. You know, like where my daughter and her husband live and where my oldest son lives, that's triple digits, 104, you know, more or less consistently.
Yeah, I've spent quite a bit of time there. I have a good friend who went to Stanford, and then so I went out to visit him a lot, and been up in Sonoma and Napa and all those places, and you know, some of the places back in the day when in San Francisco where it wasn't as treacherous as it is right now. So and I've been to Sacramento, so and I know that they're probably, when you get farther east, you know, they're probably dealing with some of this nationwide heat that we're all dealing with at this time of the year. I mean, it's what the heck, you know, it's summer. So anyway, so that's beautiful. So any other exciting things going on in your world today?
Well, I mentioned my kids, my grown kids, and since you know where Sacramento is, that's, you know, my oldest is about half hour outside of Sacramento, a town called Citrus Heights, and yes, and so he his job took him there, but he's not a heat lover, and so the temperature difference between him and where we are is about 20 degrees.
Yeah, it's nice to have that moderation, and that's one of the things about being somewhat close to the ocean or large bodies of water. The other thing is the humidity. So that'll be interesting to do that. So how many kids do you have?
I have 3. So that's the oldest is up in Citrus Heights. My daughter and her husband is in a town called Winters, which is about 45 to 60 minutes from my house, further east again. Also triple digits in that temperature where she's at. And then my middle son, he is in Martinez, just about half hour away from where we are. So they're close by. So that's good.
That's good. Yeah. If they're within drive, I feel blessed that Yeah, my kids are within a kind of a 3 hour radius of where I am. So, and some of them are, 20 minutes or 30 minutes away, and some of them are 3 hours, two of them are 3 hours away in different directions. So, and that hasn't been the case for my oldest daughter. My son-in-law is in the Air Force, and they've been all over the place. So, she was closer, and now she's up in Oklahoma. So, but still, manageable, so we can actually get together. I'm looking forward to that. Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, I want to hear your story, how you got from where you started to where you are today, and hear a little bit more of that. We didn't cover a lot of that in the introduction, so let's hear a little of the theme song for those that are on the audio audience from Ricky Jean Wright. It's Not the Getting There, and we'll be right back with Christoph Nauer and Warrior versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, we are back. Christoph, well, you're enjoying some nice weather there and not dealing with the severe heat, and you got your kids close by, all kinds of cool stuff. But tell me, how did you get from where you started? And you get to pick the starting point. When you've got as much story as I do, I always it depends on what kind of mood I'm in, where I start. But and that's totally fine. So wherever you want to start, but how did you get from where you started to where you are today?
Well, as listeners might notice, I have an accent. So I was not born in this country. I grew up in Switzerland. And I always say now that I can say that my name got famous with the movie Frozen. Before that, nobody ever knew the name Christoph. And so that's, what I explain to folks, I'm not Christopher, I'm not Chris. That's just my name, Christoph. So I have an older sister, younger brother. They're both in Switzerland. My dad was a train engineer running trains across Switzerland. My mom was fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mom. Both have passed. My dad always talked about the importance of education because he didn't get that. And so I gotta, like most kids, you get tired of school, but I listened to his advice, and I'm very happy that I did. I got a BA in business, and then I had also got my teaching credentials and taught elementary school for 5 years. And that's a pretty good profession in Switzerland. You can actually raise a family on that. But doing that, I realized this is not something I want to do for the rest of my life. And at that point, I was also dealing with, the faith that was passed on to me through my mother, we were raised Catholic. And, wondering what the heck this was all about. So I ended up coming to the United States to study theology. And that's where I met my wife. That's how I ended up staying here. So I got a master's degree in theology. We got married soon after we met and had these wonderful kids, and I always knew I wanted to have kids. We both spent, 20 plus years in pastoral ministry, raising 3 kids. And so you talk about zombies, it's like time for us, time for me, it's kind of like you give. And when you're in pastoral ministry, you're there for the people that you're pastoring. And then you have your kids. And what's there for me? What's there for us? And I started realizing how critically important that was. Now, of course, the whole move to come here and that was not easy too. I was established as a teacher there. I had an apartment, everything was fine, but I knew I needed to something different. I needed to do something different. And that's probably the first time I stepped outside my comfort zone. And to the point actually where they wouldn't even want to give me the student visa because they said, well, you're giving up your apartment and your job, you don't really have intention of coming back. So I had to go back and apply again, reapply and say, no, I wanted to study, but so then I ended up getting the student visa, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to come over here. And then, after about 20 plus years in ministry, raising our kids, I met a man in a men's group. A friend of mine invited me to a men's group. They're not all Catholic. They were from different walks of life, but they're all spiritual people in that group. And one of the guys in the group was a coach. And so when he started talking, and my ears perked up. I was like, this is interesting stuff. I ended up having, about, I don't know how many coffee meetings with him and picking his brain. And he was, he's very generous enough to let me do that. And after a while, I reached a point where I said to him, this sounds really exciting. How can I get trained? Mm-hmm. So lo and behold, he said to me, well, you know what? It's so interesting that you should ask, because I'm just starting to transition from coaching people to training coaches. I'm like, oh, okay. So I kind of became his first student, so to speak. Now, this was exciting, but brand new. I think the skill set that I brought with me from my past in the pastoral ministry, teaching and everything else was really well done. But I was attached to a script. Mm-hmm. I had to follow a script. I don't know what I'm doing, And so one of my friends in the men's group offered to be a guinea pig for me so I could practice my new learned skill sets with him. And then he reported back to my coach and said, tell him to lose the script. Well, there's the scary part. I had to lose the script.
Yeah, that is scary.
And, but I realized that, it opened up conversation much deeper than it was possible when I was attached to a script. Instead of looking at my script, I was focusing on the person I was talking to. And my coach said, it'll come to you what it is you want to say and what you will respond. And I had to believe that. And that was, again, it was pretty scary,
Sure.
Because that was not my personality. But when I did that, I realized he was right. It's the trust that we have to know who to trust, and so of course when you have experience like most people, when trust has been broken, then you're kind of scared of, can I trust this person? But anyway, so that was the beginning of my coaching career. And one thing that I learned too is once you have the certificate, that means you don't know anything. You might have a piece of paper, but the learning curve really started then. Mm-hmm. And so then it was like, okay, who is out there who's doing this? Who are the gurus in the industries? And so that's when I started connecting with people like John Assaraf and Brian Tracy and Christian Michelson, some of the top gurus in the industry, and continued my training and learning, getting their programs and learning from them. And then, about 6 or 7 years ago, my coach told me, you don't have a brand. It was just Christoph Nauer, and that's when the business name Balance 6 was born. Mm-hmm. And it became my brand. That process was scary as hell. Talk about zombies. Because I was told you need a new website, new logo, new business name, new everything. That's again another time where I was pushed outside my comfort zone, which as a coach is kind of like what I tell my clients. If you want growth, you have to step outside your comfort zone. So I had to do that several times myself. But this now became my brand. because my belief system is that when we balance those six that you mentioned in the introduction, time and money, health, relationship, self-improvement, and spirituality or higher power, that's when we're the best version of ourselves. And everybody we interact with deserves the best version of ourselves and not the leftovers, you know. And that goes back to us being parents.
Mm-hmm.
When we did not take care of our own relationships and our own well-being, we were not the parents that our kids deserved. And that's not fair to them, and it's not fair to us.
That's brilliant. Couple of things you said there. Well, I know you've got some more probably to share in your story, but I know it also sounds like we're getting kind of close. So I want to emphasize a few things. First of all, you laid out a lot of zombies there. I mean, you may not. I think you recognize them as such, but you hit on some things. First of all, back in the beginning, the fascinating part of this, and I think this occurred in one of our earlier conversations, we get to know each other a little bit, is you said Catholic Church and kids, meaning that you were in that church in a leadership in a role at one point. So obviously you weren't a priest. But you were in the community building part of that. And actually we have some alignment there. After I retired, I was in ministry for a few years and was, doing some things, but not in the Catholic Church. But so I do understand a little bit of that. So that had to be kind of a early on zombie where you had to get out and really embrace the trade-off between, okay, I want to be at the top of this hierarchy, or I want to do that. So that's kind of fascinating. Then moving into the teaching thing, one of the things that I found interesting about that is that are you the oldest son of in your family? Are you the?
No, my sister's the oldest, and she was a teacher. She retired as a teacher just about three years ago. She was an elementary school teacher for many years, and then became a special ed teacher for the last about 10, 15 years of her career.
Yeah, the thing I learned about that, and I've got a friend who's passed recently that wrote a book, and all the presidents are children or whatever. He talks about how every child, when it comes to your father, assuming you have a strong father figure in your life, finds a path forward either through mimicry, and usually it's the oldest child. That's why I asked if it was the oldest child. Mimicry or completion. In other words, you do something that your father did. So your father was a teacher, you were a teacher. Your father was a warrior, you were, in the military, you were in the, you did what they did because you were doing what they did. That's one thing. And then the other part of it is completion. My father never got to have time or never got to focus on the family, and I'm going to make sure that I do that because I'm doing that. So especially in the older child, but it flows all the way through. It sounds like that's there. So depending on where you end up, that can also be a zombie. It can be an obstacle if you were, quote, programmed that way in your early days. And it's not a good or bad. And then the next thing you said, which I also found fascinating, is you got into it. You seem to be a very analytical guy, somebody who's with intention, probably helping your people. You got in and working with these coaches. And one of the things I find with a lot of coaches is their own authenticity. I mean, if you want to be a Brian Tracy coach, there's plenty of tools and capabilities I can get about Brian Tracy. I can learn a lot from Brian Tracy without ever meeting Brian Tracy these days. So meeting a Brian Tracy coach doesn't mean that much. And I'm just saying from my own perspective, doesn't mean that much to me, other than that I know you've got some structure around your thought and you figure it out. But you obviously got counsel from another coach telling you that you needed to have your own brand. And brand, if you're talking to marketing people, means one thing, but really it's an easy way to identify what path you're on. And I know whether I align with you or I don't. And if I don't, it's okay. That's why you want that brand. So the balance, and then, you mentioned, a couple of other things about, the fear and I mean, I would say it even more aggressively, I think, than I heard you say, is that no growth occurs outside your comfort zone. You really have to break through. I don't care whether it's learning to walk, learning to talk, learning math, learning how to be a man, learning how to be a woman. That's tough stuff, right?
Yep.
So we're all on that journey. And then the other point of alignment that you and I are in is my vision challenge. I have the same 6 areas, that I focus on when I'm working with my clients. The good news for you is I'm retired 16 years ago. I do it when I am really inspired by somebody, but most of the time I channel people to other coaches, other people, if what they ultimately figure out is their vision isn't that inspiring to me, because my most valuable asset is my time. Therefore, I have to be very intentional about how I allocate that, which I'm assuming when we get into the next segment of what you did. So any other zombies, things that you've overcome along the way, or are we ready to talk about what you're doing today?
Well, I think one that probably a lot of entrepreneurs facing is the thought or the need to be at your client's beck and call. And that is that's not conducive to my own well-being and health, and it's not conducive to anybody. It interferes with all the things I teach and train my clients on. There's a time, when you're available, and there's a time when you're not available. It's a little bit different than being a parent.
Yeah, parents, you're always on. I've got 5, like I said, I got 5 kids. When they're in the house anyway, and even today, I find myself that's a boundary I can't. If they need me, I'm there. Obviously, clients aren't that. Employers think they're that too. That's the other thing. You don't have to just be in your own business or be a coach. That's one of the reasons I'm retired, is that retirement is not doing nothing. If you're doing nothing, your average life expectancy is 6 years. So if so that's a fact. That's statistical. So you need to be fulfilling a purpose, a life purpose, right? If otherwise, what? And God might as well just take you home especially if you're Christian, might as well go. You don't have a purpose, So you got to have a life purpose, right? But doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want, that's retirement. And so living a version of your ideal day that includes all the aspects of your life, because it's not just one aspect. Yeah, sometimes one's higher, one's lower. It doesn't matter in terms of allocation of time, but again, it's a whole picture. It's a whole daily journey, right? That's the theme song of this podcast. So, but anyway, so that's extremely beneficial. Is really the boundaries. That's an area that I be candidly, I still struggle with, and most warriors do. At your client's beck and call. For some of the warriors listening to this go, well, I'd like to have so many clients that I'm worrying about that. On the other hand, finding that balance, and when you have clients and have obligations in the work world, and still making sure that you're keeping your hierarchy of priorities, whether it's your spiritual or your family, or the relationships, your network, those things. So that's brilliant. Well, let's do this. I'm going to take a quick break. I want to come back and we'll talk, and you can, if there's something else that you think of in your story, but I want to get into, your why you're doing what you're doing, your vision of where you're going, that kind of thing. So let's take a quick break, hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Christoph Nauer and Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games.
All right, Christoph. So I know, by the way, I'll tell the audience right now, we're going to be back together tomorrow, Christoph and I, for a mastermind. So we're going to drill down in this, what we're going to talk about briefly in this segment about his focus and work-life balance and that kind of stuff tomorrow. So if you're on the Be Connected platform, you can join us again tomorrow for a little longer experience and a little more focused on the fundamentals that Christoph is dealing with there. And but then right now, I really want to hear why you're doing what you're doing, and you've already shared some things that kind of give me a sense of your unique perspective, if you will, and value, and then impact. So share that with the audience.
Sure. I think my motto is, of the podcast I have is called Better Life, Better Business. I take a comprehensive approach because I know it's possible to have a successful business and a happy home life. It is possible, but we have to, in order for this to happen, we have to take our most precious commodity, which is time, and use it wisely. Okay? And that's really what I work on with my clients. So what is it that I do for myself and for my family and spouse and loved one every day? Or, because everybody says my family is the most important thing in my life. But when we look at how we spend our time, there's a big deficit there.
Yep.
And you have 5 kids, I have 3 grown kids. The time we have with them is limited, and it goes by this quickly. And to illustrate some of the points here is that I was working with a single mom, 4 kids, trying to get her real estate business off the ground. And I tried to introduce office hours to her, and she said, "Oh, you don't understand my industry." So I said, "You're right. I'm a coach. I'm not a realtor, but I can tell you one thing. Those beautiful 4 kids of yours will resent you if you're not present to them. You might be physically present, but that's about it." And so it took a while for her to she fought me for a while, but she eventually really implemented that, the concept, and she had it in her email signature, and her voicemail message clearly stating when she was available, when people could expect the call back, and when she was not available. And she's now running a multi-million-dollar business with about 5 or 6 team members on it. Very successful. And I'm using a story because to tell a story, it tells more than words.
Sure.
Another one was a dentist who came to me because his wife was ready to leave him. They had just had a young child, and he kept coming home with a briefcase full of work. So obviously you can see right away that he's doing other people's work.
Right.
So we started working on, hey, you got trained to be fixing teeth. Focus on that, nothing else. And again, it took a while because coaching is a long-term practice. It's not a quick fix thing like how
it's a journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day.
If you want to flip the switch, that's not how it works, even though our society would love the instant gratification part. But he ended up being able to come home on time for dinner without a briefcase, which made his wife happy, his son happy. But that's not the only thing. He was able to add about 15 to 20 new patients to his practice because he could.
Sure.
So I share these stories to make my point. So they have a happy home life, a fulfilling home life, and a successful business. And that's where the whole idea of having a plan and the structure in place for every day of your life that includes a comprehensive approach to things that you do for others, for yourself, starting like having a morning routine, for instance, that sets you up to play at a 10 every day instead of hitting the snooze button 20 times until you have to jump out of bed because you got about 5 minutes before your first appointment. So things like that, these are some critically important components that I work on. And when I see that, what that does to a person and their lives and their business, that is so fulfilling. This is why I do what I do. When I see the results, when I see the change, that's what gives me energies and motivates me and makes me get up in the morning. Uh, so that's what I do, and I know it's possible. And my vision will be, to see businesses being run differently. You know, the other
Sure.
thing I want to see is that the businesses are run from here, heart-centered entrepreneurs. I want to work with heart-centered entrepreneurs, not with business owners who are willing to walk over dead bodies to increase their bottom line.
Amen.
So that's kind of like, I hope this gives a little bit of an idea of
Oh, it gives
I
a great
what
idea.
I do.
Yeah, Christoph, it's a great idea. And frankly, we're very aligned. My life purpose actually is changing the world one dream at a time. I totally get, I'm always on a search for people who have a dream or think they need to figure that out. And I focus on the very beginning of that process. Really, it's, understanding again why you're here, what unique value you provide, if anything were possible, what kind of impact you want to have, and what kind of ideal day. You've been very revealing in your stories and in the things you just said in terms of that. So, in terms of the last question, and then we'll go into what I call the land of plane segment. The last question I have is really, what kind of impact are as you're going at you're doing, obviously one-to-one coaching, you're getting a lot of inspiration from getting up and working with the clients that you have, helping them achieve the results. Is there a scale aspect of this? I mean, you want to impact millions, your local community, your family. What does that look like?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I ended up writing a book. And it's called From No Time to Free Time, 6 Steps to Work-Life Balance for Business Owners. It's been an Amazon bestseller. And that gives me a chance to reach more people. Okay, because this now makes it available to everybody in the world. They can get it on Amazon. And if they read the book and implement the things that I have in there, that will change their lives. I know it does. It will change their business.
Awesome.
And so, the one-to-one is my preferred way of coaching because I love it. I really get to dig in deep and address the challenges that particular person is facing. But I also have a group program so that I can reach more, than we just do gather in a group setting virtually, with Zoom. This is all possible now. I also have a 3-week video program that people can do it themselves, where they take them through the 7 steps that they need to take to achieve their time management goals. That program includes my book. So these are some of the things that are available to folks because I want to help as many people as I possibly can. I'd love to have a worldwide impact. And I think just the fact to have that, once you have a book, it's much, you can reach a much wider audience this way.
Yeah, for sure. And you can get some clarity on your message, and people can refer back to it and all that. Well, let's do this. Let's take another quick break, and we'll get into what I call the land the plane segment, and we'll hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright. When we come back, I want to kind of figure out what it is that you want to make sure that we take away. You've covered a lot of stuff. It's been amazing. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Christoph Nauer and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always 2 different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God.
All right, Christoph, we are back, and it was it's been a great journey. I really had fun talking, and I'm looking forward again to our mastermind tomorrow. So anybody catching this before Tomorrow, I would encourage you to jump on the mastermind and join us to kind of drill into or plow into some of this stuff in a little more detail in an interactive way. So, Christoph, if we take away anything from this podcast or from this show, what would you want us to take away?
I would say a few things. First of all, critically important, have a plan, a schedule for every day. Okay. So that you have a GPS for the day. When you get up, you know exactly what you will be doing. Start your day with something that is life-giving, that sets you up to work at a 10, to play at a 10. So develop a morning routine, as I call it. For me, it is about a half hour of meditation and prayer, and then a half hour on my stationary bike. That's my time to get ready for the day. Then it's shower time, get my tea, and I'm ready to tackle the day. Whatever it is that each person have. So then that way you have something to follow. Ideally, you set aside maybe half hour or so every week to plan the next week. If you take the weekend off, maybe Friday is a good thing to do that, because then you know exactly what you're going to be doing on Monday. You don't have to worry about the weekend and fretting Monday and whatever. So Monday is laid out. This is what my Monday looks like. Tuesday looks like that. So have a plan for every day. That's critically important. In the plan, be sure to include self-care. Something for yourself to recharge your batteries, something for your family and loved ones. And we don't have time, but the whole idea of prioritizing everything else, the self-care should be as important on your calendar as an appointment with a client.
I totally agree. And in fact, we are totally aligned there as well. And when I work with my clients, and by the way, clients for me are, whether they pay me or not, if they're in my community, if I have an ability to have an impact, I consider them clients, because when I retired, it wasn't, I'm retiring for making money, but I was at the top of my game, made a lot of money, that kind of thing. And then said, okay, I'm going to flip the switch and say, I'm going to have an impact. If money follows, it's a beautiful thing. I have an impact first. That means that in the way I view you, I view everybody that comes into my sphere of influence as a client. And then that means I'm serving you. Client to me means service. And I have, my network is a network of servant leaders, people that are, people that hang around me are people that are inspired by serving, and people that aren't inspired by serving, or they're not givers or takers, leave. So you said a few things there that really, number one, I say amen to, and I'm a Christian, so I don't make any secret about that. I don't beat people over the head with that, but that's my mindset. And frankly, it makes life real simple for me in terms of that. But the thing you said is have a plan for every day. That includes your calendar, and your calendar, it needs to include time blocks. And it's kind of like, I'm going to get ready to get on a plane and fly to Italy. And, they tell you when you get on the plane, if you're with kids or with whatever, is put your mask on first and then take care of your kids, right? And so if you put your kids on first, you might pass out and can't do anything for them from that point on. So you've got to take care of yourself. And that's the other thing you said that was brilliant. And that is that you need to do that. The other thing is end your day with the planning for the next day or the next week or whatever, because otherwise your brain's processing and kind of, it doesn't give you the clarity, so that when you wake up, that routine, or that what I call ritual that you have when you start, needs to be something that you don't have to think about that much, but it's serving you and serves you so that you can then serve everybody else. So that's what I heard you say. And I think it's brilliant. And I think every warrior needs to hear that, remind themselves of that, and continue on. And I'm really looking forward to our mastermind tomorrow. So Christoph, how do we stay in touch with you? I know we can get you. This is on the Be Connected platform. There's other ways people will hear this through podcast or whatever. how do we stay in touch with you beyond that?
The best place to go is to my business website, balance6.biz. So the word balance, the number 6, and .biz. There they can set up an appointment with me. They can get my book. They can sign up for the video program. There's a blog there. There's a slew of blog posts there. There's a list to my podcast that addresses a lot of this stuff. So best place to go is balance6.biz.
Balance6.biz. Well, that's easy. And be connected. And Christoph Nauer, and that's again, Christoph, you said it's interesting. My wife and my daughter just went to see Frozen, the Broadway show here in town in Dallas yesterday or last night. So it's very top of mind. But yeah, Christoph is now something that kind of rolls off the tongue. We always figured that was short for Christopher before. But yeah, you're right. So, well, it's been brilliant. I love it. For those, that want to join us again, we'll be back next Thursday. Actually, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. This is the finale of season 2. We'll start season 3 on Thursday, August the 11th. And we'll be back for that. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to listen to other episodes and join us tomorrow for the mastermind with Christoph. And you can really, if this is exciting to you, try and get this out today. I would encourage you to be back. So with that, we're going to hear the outro of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. And Christoph, thank you for serving our audience. I'm sure those listening to this will be a lot better off for their investment in the time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Let's have a brilliant day, and we'll be on. And thank you for joining us.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know.